Hey there, and welcome to the Profitable Entrepreneur Podcast with your host, Ann Keeney. And this is the podcast where we help six-figure coaches, VAs, and entrepreneurs all around the world scale their sales, break free from the one-to-one hustle, and skyrocket their profits online. Because we believe that the best business is a profitable one, and real CEOs make money, not coffee. So rise up, join the revolution, and let's get down to business. All right, guys, welcome back to another Profitable Entrepreneur podcast episode. Today, I wanted to talk about tapping into your resilience to really surpass your revenue goals. I thought this would be a really helpful and important topic. I think there's a level of, resilience that's required in order to meet and exceed and maintain certain and specific goals in your business. So I wanted to share a few tips that I have been doing. I've been talking and working with my clients on really bringing in, incorporating, especially as we get ready to enter into a new year. There's been, a lot of obstacles and challenges here in 2020. There's been a lot of unprecedented experiences and decisions and things we've all had to encounter and experience, and a lot of change, a lot of uncomfortable change, different, unfamiliar. And I think that it's really required all of us to tap in to a higher level of resilience than we've ever had to before. And of course, this is not going to be the last time. So I think it's really important to bring this awareness to the table and to have this conversation and to start talking about this. So the first thing that, I want to talk about when it comes to tapping into resilience to really surpass your revenue goals, the first thing that is so important is focusing on giving versus getting, right? So business is definitely a money game for sure. I talk about that all the time. It's definitely a money game. But when we focus so much on just hitting certain numbers in order to feel successful or fulfilled, we almost always feel either dissatisfied, discouraged, or maybe even like we're failing, right? There's a sense of like a failure because the numbers are never the means to an end, right? There's always more money you want to make. There's always a bigger impact that you want to create in the world. There's always something bigger, better, and more that you're going to want to do and achieve and accomplish and experience. And so we're always going to be aiming and reaching for something more. There's never going to be a time in our lives where we're like, there we go. I did it. I accomplished all and I'm done, right? And so I think that, yes, business is a numbers game, but I think that if we focus so much more on hitting these certain numbers in order to feel like we are successful and fulfilled, I kind of feel like we're always going to feel like we are failing, right? So one of the things that has really helped me is to focus on giving instead of getting, to focus on giving instead of receiving, right? Like anytime that, I talk about sales is my specialty. One of the things I talk about constantly is the psychology of sales, right? To be a very successful, high converting sales expert, which you need to be if you run a business, you have to understand sales psychology. And part of sales, the psychology that I talk about and I teach and I practice for the past 20 years in my business, one of the most important elements of the sales psychology is the serving, the giving, right? We are in sales and in business to serve, to give, to solve problems, to focus on other people's needs and wants and challenges and obstacles. And I think that nowadays, too many people look at sales as a personal agenda, right? I sell and I run my business and I have sales calls to put money in my bank, to reach my goals, to fulfill my goals, to make my dreams happen, to, put food on my table. I think there's this very personal agenda today in today's industry, especially the coaching world. There's an agenda. There's a personal agenda behind the sales. And this is why a lot of people struggle to close sales, because they're not doing it to be of service. They're not doing it to give and to serve and to help and to solve problems. is a personal agenda. Okay. And this is something that, to really be resilient, you gotta be doing something that is bigger and more meaningful and more impactful than just making money and fulfilling your personal agenda. At the end of the day, you will not feel fulfilled because you made a certain amount of money. You will not feel successful because you made a certain amount of sales. At the end of the day, there's people that are millionaires, billionaires, and they're the most unhappy, unfulfilled people in the world because they had a self agenda, right? So that's the first thing that I thought we'd kick off. The next thing is really, I think it's important to focus on the people who took action and did say yes, and the impact that you're going to have in their life. And just always aim to serve more and more versus earn more and more, right? I think, again, a lot of times we'll have a launch, or we'll book consult calls, and we'll have 2 sales. And then we'll go to our mentors, or we'll look at ourselves and we're like, we failed. We only got 2 sales. But what if you changed your mindset on that and you thought, oh my God, 2 amazing people just said yes to their dreams, and they just said yes to themselves, and I get to help them have an impact. I have an opportunity to change their life. I have that opportunity. How grateful am I? How amazing is that for me, right? Like, how awesome is that I get to help change their life, contribute to serving them and helping them reach their dreams? What if you looked at it like that instead of a numbers game, right? Always aim to serve more and more versus earn more and more. Part of the reason that entrepreneurs today don't have this resilience is, again, it's a self-prophecy. You're so focused on your personal agenda that you're counting the numbers constantly. And if they're not where you think they should be, or where you thought they would be, or what you want and need, then you consider it, I failed, or this strategy doesn't work, or I got to do something different, or now I'm going to have to try something else. And then you minimize the small wins and success that you are having. And in fact, you take 2 people that raised their hand and said yes, took the leap, and they invested. They took the risk in themselves, in you, and you actually demise that by saying, I only got 2. Like, those 2 don't matter. When you're so hyper-focused on fulfilling your own agenda, you lose sight of those moments. You lose sight of those small wins that you're actually having, and you don't look at it in the lens of, these are 2 people. These are real human lives that I just got the opportunity to change, to contribute to, right? I could have got none. I got 2. And what happens when you're so focused on numbers and just filling your own bank account or your own wallet or your own personal little goals on your launches or whatever it is, right? When you're so focused on that versus serving more people and impacting people and actually making a difference in the world and changing lives, you get focused on those numbers. And so you're always going to fail. You will always feel like you are failing if you always focus on your own agenda and looking at the numbers by themselves. You will always fail because you're never going to get to the point where you're like, boom, I did it. There we go. Right? You're always going to say, oh, I only did it this much. I only got this many. Oh, I got this many, but I wanted that many. Oh, I could have got this many. I should have got that many. There's always a bigger reach, guys. Right? You're never going to get to, there's no ends to any of this. There's no end to it. It's just always growth. You are constantly revolutionizing, evolving, growing, learning, expanding, and you're always going to want more, bigger, and better. So there's never going to be a time that you're going to be 100% fulfilled by numbers, by goals. Those are great to have and you need them, but those are not the things that are going to fulfill you. What's going to fulfill you is the impact that you make, the lives that you change, the journeys that you get to go on and experience with these people who have said yes to you and they trust you and they're invested in you and themselves. And you have an opportunity to make a difference. And that impact and that difference that you make, that is going to be the thing that makes you feel successful, that makes you feel fulfilled. There is no money in the world. There's no amount of money in the world that's going to make you feel successful and fulfilled when you lay your head down at night, other than the impact and the lives that you change and the meaningful relationships that you get to build and be part of. And if you lose sight of that and you focus on your personal agenda and you look at every human as either a sale or nobody, you will always feel like you're failing. The deck is always going to be stacked against you, right? So I cannot stress the importance. I cannot stress the importance of focusing on the impact. Focus on the human connection. Focus on relationship, co-creation, collaboration, communication. Focus on how can I change one human's life today? How can I make a difference to just one person today? Right? What is something I could say or do or share that would make a difference to someone, that maybe would brighten their day, that maybe would take them from paralyzation to feeling passionate again, or maybe feeling defeated and discouraged to seeing hope and possibility and opportunity? How can you show up and be creating that impact? Okay, because with that, you will fulfill your own personal agenda. With that, you will create sales. You will create clients, right? You will reach your goals and fill your launches and close your consults, and you will do all of that. Okay? And then the third thing that I recommend to my clients is I think it's important to raise your minimum. I think that when we set these minimum goals, we take only the necessary actions to hit that minimum. But if you raise your minimum, guys, and assign your actions with those new minimums, you're going to increase the results, right? So if one of my clients is aiming for $30,000 months, right? We're going to seek how to raise it authentically so that our actions are bigger. Now, that does not necessarily mean, when I say the actions are bigger, it doesn't necessarily mean more, meaning you have to take more action. It just means you take bigger action, right? And even if she doesn't hit that new minimum, he or she can usually surpass the old minimum. So really raising your minimum and your vibration is something that's going to help you take a bigger action, because here's what I see a lot of entrepreneurs do. Well, if I could just make $5,000 and be able to pay the bills, that would be good. But here's the thing. If your goal is $5,000, your actions, your decisions, your energy, your mindset, your commitment, your conviction, right, and your belief is only 5,000. It's always just going to be 5,000. And what happens is when we have a minimum, right, we don't always meet that. We get really close, or you might just barely. But imagine if your belief was just a little bigger. Imagine if your action was just a little bigger, not more, just bigger. Imagine if your energy was just a little bit raised up, just a little bit more. And then, again, you align the action and your belief, right, and your energy with this new minimum. You could surpass that minimum. You could fly right by it, or you could hit it, or you might not even get to it 100%. But you'll get more than your old minimum. Another reason why I see a lot of entrepreneurs give up and they don't have that resilience to keep going when things are hard is they just set these very, very small minimum goals. If I could just get enough to do this, if I could just make enough to do that. And the problem is you're only just going to do enough then. You're only just doing a little bit. And so if you just raise the bar a little bit, your energy, your belief system, and your action, right? Your commitment is going to be a little bigger, which means you'll get a little bit more because your actions and your commitment is a little bit bigger, right? If I only take actions to make a certain amount of money, then that's all I'm going to get. But if my actions are just a little bigger and I aim for just a little bit more, I'm going to get a little bit more. And it's like you just keep inching your way up. Every time, set your minimum a little bit higher. Continue to raise your minimum. Right? If your minimum right now is 5,000, why not raise it to 8 or 10,000, right? And make that your new minimum. And then after that, when you hit that or close, you're like, okay, in order to get beyond it, I've got to raise that minimum a little. So I take a bigger action so that I bring a bigger energy and a bigger mindset, right? And then maybe you raise it from 10 to 20, and you take a bigger thing, and maybe you'll hit 15,000 or 18,000, maybe 20, maybe you'll even surpass it. But I think part of being able to surpass your goals is you have to have resilience. You got to be resilient. You have to have resilience. You cannot be so attached to numbers dictating if you're successful, dictating, if you're fulfilled, right? And if you get so focused on just the numbers instead of the impact, right? So instead of saying, okay, I only have to speak to 10 people, why not make your goal 30, 20, or 30? Why not raise your bar a little bit? Why not raise that up a little? I always tell my clients, if you need 100 leads, go for 200, go for 300, always. I know that they could reach a really good goal and move forward at their minimum. I know that would feel really good to them, but it's not going to feel fulfillment. They're not going to feel accomplished, fulfilled, successful. And I know that by them just taking those bare minimum steps, that they're staying really comfortable, really minimal, and really small. And we need to expand that to see the growth continue to expand, right? So if your minimum is like, if you're looking at your calendar and your schedule and your goals and you're saying, okay, I only need 10 clients for me to hit my goal this year or this month. Why not say, okay, but you know what? I'm going to go for 20. I'm going to take actions and energy and alignment for 20. And believe it. Of course, you have to believe it, right? Go for that. Go for it. What's the worst that's going to happen? What is the worst that's going to happen if you take bigger action and raise your bar a little bit? If you know in your calendar you have to speak to 20 people to get your sales, okay? If you have to speak to 20 people in order for you to hit your money goal, why not stretch yourself, raise your minimum, and say, you know what? I'm going to speak to 30 or maybe even 40 people. That's my new goal. I'm going to set that challenge for myself, and I'm going to do what I got to do it. Right? This is part of creating resilience, guys, is you got to set your bar higher so that you don't feel like you're failing, right? You got to stretch things to go a little bigger and beyond, because usually, when you take a bigger action, you might not hit that, but you will exceed and surpass your minimum, right? So this is a challenge, and this is something that I have my clients do. It's an exercise I'm always doing. I'm always trying to go a little bit bigger and beyond, and just raise my minimum as I go. It's an exercise I want you guys to try right now. Right now, look at what you're trying to do. Let's raise that minimum up even just a little bit. And I promise you're going to start to see a momentum build, and it's going to be bigger. All right, you're going to impact more lives. You're going to have more conversations. You're going to communicate with more people and have great conversations. You're going to see that you are taking bigger actions, getting a little bit more of a bigger result, but just by doing that, by raising that minimum a little bit. Okay, so those are the 3 things, guys. Number 1, I definitely want you guys to really focus on giving versus getting. Focus a little less on your personal agenda and make it your mission to have human connection, impactful, meaningful conversations, connections. Focus on serving, solving other people's problems, not your own problems. In doing that, you will solve your own. I want you guys to really look at celebrating those smaller wins and not looking at 2 sales as I only got 2 when I was trying to get 10. I want you to celebrate those 2 that raised their hand and said yes when other people didn't. And I want you to give them everything you got, over deliver to them, have a massive impact, change their lives. That's what's going to make you feel fulfilled and satisfied and successful at the end of the day. And then raise your minimum, raise it up. Even if it's only by like 5 or 10, raise it up. Any little bit that you do is going to require you to just step in and lean in a little bit more to a higher version of yourself, even if it's just increments of little tiny raises over time. Okay, I'd love to hear if you guys pop over in our free group, Simplify the Scale, our free Facebook group. I'd love to hear your takeaways from today's episode. Love to hear what you're going to start doing and what you think, what your biggest takeaways are and the changes you're going to make going forward, especially as we head into a new year. We've had a lot of challenges and obstacles. And I think we've all had to tap into more resilience than ever before. And I'd love to keep this conversation going. I'll see you guys on the next episode. Hey, not so fast. As a valued listener of the Profitable Entrepreneur podcast, we want to help you simplify the scale and revolutionize your income and your impact online. not just here in these weekly sessions, but every day of the week and every week of the year. We have an amazing free Facebook group with other successful, high-achieving, and profitable CEOs who are creating financial and time freedom for their families. They're breaking free from the one-to-one hustle, and they're making a real income and impact. If this is an experience that you want to have and you want to be part of a real online community where you can